Welcome to the Geek 101 podcast, episode 258, Superhero Casting Call. I'm Batman. Well, I'm Ariel Rada.
And I'm Batman too. And I'm Andy Bowman.
Today we are going to talk about casting in the superhero and comic book movie world. Recently on Twitter, there have been plenty of discussions regarding who the best Batman is, who or what is going to happen with the Superman role currently occupied by Henry Cavill. And of course, we are going to discuss the looming MCU castings for their additions coming up, right? The X-Men and Fantastic Four. Andy, is there any news worth talking about besides the predictable delay of Tenet once again?
Well, Tenet got delayed. We still haven't heard about New Mutants though, Ariel. So, fingers crossed here. Fingers crossed. It's a slow news week. It's constantly slow news week. We got little things like The Boys season 2. I know you love that show, Ariel. Is coming out in September.
I hate that show even more today than I ever have.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything worth talking about.
All right. Well, we've been having short episodes lately due to the lack of news and the world's on fire. But let's get into our topic today. Castings for the superheroes. We're just going to do a quick, simple, yet difficult to answer question. Who is the best Batman? Andy, we are going to exclude Kevin Conroy because as much as many people love Kevin Conroy and say that he's the best Batman, to include him is disingenuous because it's a different type of performance that you are doing to go from physical acting to voice acting. So here are your options and our options. We have Adam West from the 60s, Michael Keaton from the Burton films, Val Kilmer from Batman Forever, George Clooney from Batman and Robin, Christian Bale from the Dark Knight trilogy, and of course Ben Affleck from everybody's favorite version of Batman, the Snyderverse. So Andy, what are your thoughts on, let's just go what are your thoughts on the Batmans? What are your thoughts on the Batmans as a whole before we get into who we think the best one is?
All right. So one of these things that I want to bring up real quick is that so many of these actors are going for different things with their Batman. Clearly, Adam West and Christian Bale are two completely different sides of the spectrum. Overall, I don't think that there's necessarily a bad casting choice for these. I think it's heavily dependent on the kind of Batman you're trying to do. I think if Keaton tried to do Affleck's Batman, it would be terrible.
Okay, I think it's fair to say on paper there's no issue with the casting, right? But there are bad performances in here. I think Clooney does nothing. I think Clooney gives nothing to Batman.
He sleeps through the entire thing. Yeah, okay. You know what? Let's go ahead and just say what the worst two are.
Would you say Clooney and Kilmer?
I would say Clooney and Bale.
Bale is, for somebody who prides himself on acting, it's the voice he does alone is so horrendous that you
voice,
have
Ariel? Tell me what voice.
It's so bad. The thing here though is I have to include Ben Affleck with George Clooney in this scenario. He gives you no effort in those films, right? Besides brooding. We like to say he did good, but it's more so the physicality behind that Batman is something that we hadn't seen yet. But that's not Ben Affleck. Am I wrong?
I want to tell you what I think about Ben Affleck's performance, because I actually think there is something there, Ariel. I will actually defend Ben Affleck. I think, yes, it's a lot of brooding, but I think what he's really bringing is a man who has done this for a very long time, and there's just anger left in him.
Okay, but it's still like that's still one note. I wouldn't put him below Clooney, right? But to me, it's just maybe he wasn't asked to do enough.
Yeah, I don't think Zack Snyder had enough of a grasp on what Batman is, and we we get one scene with him as Bruce Wayne.
I mean, you get a few here and there between the two films, but they're bad, right? He sheepishly is at the party and runs into Wonder Woman, where he's like an idiot, right? Then you have moments where he's like getting drunk and drinking. Yeah. And you have CrossFit.
And here's another thing about that. I don't think Bruce Wayne drinks.
No, he doesn't.
He pretends to drink.
He very clearly does in the Snyderverse.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but in all actuality, what we think about Bruce Wayne as a character or Batman as a character, like, I don't think he would do anything to let his body weaken at all.
No, not even close. Right? That's the type. He's obsessive. He's obsessive to that point. So yeah, I agree with you there. So I think that Bale is just the voice is really bad. I would put Affleck in the bottom 3 if you want to put him above or below Bale. I'm not sure. Actually, I haven't seen Batman Forever in a long time. All I remember is that Val Kilmer was not embarrassing in any way as Batman.
Okay, so here's something. I actually watched it recently. Fans might have heard my my episode on that.
Sure.
So Kilmer is doing a little bit of West. He's kind of goofy. He has the extra lines, and it's really interesting. There's some stuff in the script that Batman would never do. I mean, there's stuff in all of these scripts that Batman would never do.
Right.
Vicky Vale doesn't go to the Batcave, for instance. But overall, I think Kilmer does a pretty good job of being the handsome playboy who's in charge of everything. I think when he is in Bruce Wayne mode, he handles his encounter with Edward Nygma very well.
Yeah, I do remember that. He's like a C. It's like a C+, right?
Okay.
And the issue here is not that he is so great; it's that he's fine, and the 3 below him are not good. How do you feel about? Do we have to give credit to Christian Bale for his Bruce Wayne?
I think we do. I think we have to give him some credit for his Bruce Wayne because there are a few lines where Bruce Wayne is talking and it is funny and he is convincingly pulling off the millionaire playboy thing. However, I also kind of wonder if Christian Bale's just not such a good-looking man. I don't know if there's any layer to this. I don't know if John Hamm per se would do any differently.
I agree with you there, but that's perhaps a bad example. John Hamm is a good actor with good comedic timing. I think the problem is they kept trying to give Batman the great moments, and he kept playing it like, I don't know, he kept doing that stupid voice. He just kept doing it over and over and over again. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know why they continued to let him do it. I think he certainly could have been a great Bruce Wayne, but even if you averaged out a B+ for Bruce Wayne and an F for his Batman, he still, grades pretty low. Physically, do you like Christian Bale's, like his movements, whatever, as Batman?
It's nothing special.
I think the choreography, I think it's pretty weak. Like when you watch him fight Bane in The Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, the fights are terrible, but like just him like moving around. And I think that the choice is just so obvious here.
Yeah, it is Michael Keaton, right? It has to be.
Yeah, it absolutely has to be Michael Keaton. He's able to pull off Bruce Wayne. You know, you believe him as being a billionaire who is just very secluded, who has
And aloof, right? He's so aloof.
right. Nobody could take him seriously, and he does it in such a way where he's not even purposely portraying. He's not being a massive playboy, right? He's not. Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne is constantly doing all these things with supermodels, right? You know, there's the thing in The Dark Knight that he was on a yacht with a bunch of supermodels, and
Right. He like buys the whole thing.
right, and then he like sneaks off and leaves. This version of Bruce Wayne, it's believable that he's a playboy, but he's also not taking the risk of having like 7 supermodels around him to mess that up, right? Like those supermodels or ballerinas or whatever, those are loose ends.
Sure. Yeah. What I like most about Keaton, and it's something that persists to this day. Actually, first to go back to your point about him being like Bruce Wayne, or his performance as Bruce Wayne, the moment that the other characters meet him, I don't know if you remember this in Batman 1989, when they're in that armory in Wayne Manor,
mm-hmm.
and he is so comfortable and charming and aloof. And it's exactly how you would imagine. It's exactly it's a scene you can imagine in your head being in the animated series. And that is, to me, that is like the highest praise you can give a Batman thing, a Batman performance. I think the animated series is more Batman than any comic book that has come out, because the comic books are ridiculous, and the animated series has to be a little more real. I can't think of moments in the Christian Bale Bruce Wayne scenes
The Bruce
right?
Wayne scenes in the Nolan trilogy are designed specifically to set up a spot where, oh, Batman has to come in, right? Bruce Wayne is almost never really interacting with anyone currently. He's never doing anything that's not Batman related, right?
Yeah.
If he's in Wayne Tech, he's talking to Lucius Fox. He's planning things. If he's doing something else, right? You never get this feeling of Bale as Bruce Wayne. You get a feeling of Bale as a guy who's like, oh, I have these obligations I need to set, but I'm going to constantly be using these to be Batman in different ways. And it just feels risky all the time.
Yeah. I think I like the moment in 89, right? In Batman 89, where he does have that moment where he's talking to people. He acts like a normal guest, like a very charming host, whatever. And then like when it shifts to the Batcave, right? He has that he's like sitting in the chair. He's very sturdy. He doesn't, it's such a perfect dichotomy. I think Keaton suffers a little bit as Batman because of like the stiff neck and a bunch of other stuff like that. So, I just think he is, and my last point for Keaton, right? It's his conviction in who he is as Batman that, it like spilled over into real life. And like, even today, I'm not concerned with Bale or Affleck or Kilmer. Like, I am Batman. And like, none of the other guys can say that. Right.
Man, thinking back to Keaton makes me more excited for Robert Pattinson as Batman.
Because you can see him doing that, giving him that vibe.
Yeah, he's incredibly charming. He's someone who can be aloof, and he's someone who could be very serious. I can see it being a thing, and I'm on the record as loving the do-it-yourself aesthetic of the Batsuit.
Yeah, they are channeling a story called Zero Year, which is from the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo Batman run. If you're curious as to where that still image was inspired by, go check that out. Let's move on to our next topic here. I think, Andy, both you and I decide that okay, it is Batman. And there are rumors, of course, of him coming back in some way, shape, or form. The internet is unsure whether or not Henry Cavill will return as Superman in the DC movies. What did we think of his performance as Clark Kent? And, of course, Superman.
Oh, this is hard. Okay, I liked some of his performances as Clark Kent and Superman. I thought there were moments where he is great. However, this is a situation where Zack Snyder has stepped in again and really, really messes it up. Just in conveying a tone of Superman. You know, it's hard to do that, but also in conveying like the brooding the lumberjack Clark Kent. I think Henry Cavill really showed that he could do this in the scenes where Joss Whedon directed the Justice League.
So for me, those scenes in the Justice League were so awkwardly like shoehorned in.
Yes, Ariel, they were. It was almost like they were done by a completely different person and directed team.
Right. They were so shoehorned in that I still couldn't get, right? There's a difference between being Superman in a commercial, which we know Henry Cavill can do. He can smile. He's super jacked, right? He looks like Superman. But that entire franchise has no idea what that character is supposed to be like. So he's not playing an honest rendition, an honest version or variation of Clark Kent. There's of Superman. I
will say, Ariel, my vision of Superman is actually kind of ruined by the CW's version of Superman, which was perfect and played by Tyler Hoechlin.
I haven't seen it. I probably never will, but I can,
don't blame you.
To me, Christopher Reeves was so unbelievably perfect when you rewatch those 70s movies. Perhaps not of Superman, right? Although if you're going just for pure wholesomeness, then yeah, sure. But his Clark Kent is so great. I think you see a little bit of it in Brandon Routh's Superman. The problem is, right, he's not channeling Christopher Reeves. He's imitating him. And I think he's not channeling that spirit. He's just copying what he sees. And so it never feels genuine. The Clark Kent that exists in the Snyderverse movies is not, I can't, like, that guy does not look like he grew up in Smallville, Kansas. And nothing he does, have you read All-Star Superman, Andy?
No, actually I have not.
Okay. Well, that is like, the thesis of that is like the essence of Superman, of Superman's entire history, right? Who Clark Kent is, his relationship with Lois, the kind of really weird Kryptonian sci-fi aspects of it, the mythological magic parts of it. He touches on every single thing that makes Superman Superman. And it's great. It's not perfect, the further away we get from it, but it's good. And so, you have to find that balance between like the bumbling, nervous Clark Kent and the wholesome Clark Kent but you still got to be believable that it's like, oh yeah, that guy is Superman. I think Henry Cavill, I think you still have to give him an incomplete, if that makes sense.
No, you absolutely do. So I think if they're going to do another Superman, and I think they should, I think if they can do it right, the field is ripe for a good Superman movie.
Yeah, dude.
I'm thinking Matt Bomer.
I think Matt Bomer's a little old. I think he looks a little too much like Henry Cavill.
Okay. And that's another thing. Is like he's
42,
thinking,
Boomer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you got to be 33 for the Christ thing. Yeah, I just keep thinking of like things like as we talk about this, I always imagine people from things that were like 10 years ago, and they're way too old now to play these roles.
Yeah, a lot of people like what you mentioned before for Mad Men.
John Hamm.
John Hamm. He's not
way too old.
It's not that he's way too old, but even in his younger years, there's an underlying coat of insidiousness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look at John Hamm and you're like, that guy's a Slytherin. and you can't have anybody who looks like a Slytherin play Hufflepuff, to put it in Harry Potter terms. But yeah,
All right. I have the perfect Superman casting.
Okay.
Right. Hear me out. Taylor Lautner.
Oh God, no.
Right?
God, no.
Oh man, it'll be right back to Batman versus.
That'd be hilarious. Or you know what would even be funnier? If they made Taylor Lautner Catman from The Secret Six. Oh, that'd be so good. So good. But either way, I think if they do want to get one more shot in, I think Henry Cavill can do it.
Right. Now, if he could buff up a little bit, what would you think about like a Dominic Cooper?
He's 42.
Son of a.
See, we've got to look like young.
I am.
You've got to go like Tom Hardy. Tom Holland.
Yeah. And that is a shame. I am bad with ages, especially in rich people. I think a Ty Sheridan would be great if he could be a slightly better actor.
Ty Sheridan.
He played Cyclops in the new ones.
Oh yeah. He's a little too ugly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, Ariel. I don't try to call people out for being too ugly to play Superman.
I will then. I'm looking at like actors under 20, and none of them fit the bill. I think if you find a guy who looks quintessentially like Superman, like unfortunately those people are just kind of channeled into modeling and not acting, right? Like, and you also have that old adage where it's just like, yeah, if you're really handsome, if you're conventionally handsome, you don't need to have a personality, which is of course another thing, right? But I don't know. Let's really move on. I think Henry Cavill.
Finn Wolfhard?
I'm curious as to what he looks like post puberty.
Right.
Maybe he has that Christopher Reeves thing going on.
Yeah, I can see it. I could see that. I could see him developing very nicely into the kind of person who could do it.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna cut some of these. Let's cut some of these. Whatchamacalls, gaps. Even the kid who plays Will, Noah Schnapp.
Yeah.
If he, got through puberty, and he's 6 feet tall, and he's relatively muscular. Oh, he's only 5'8". Geez, he's 15, 5'8". Okay, there's a chance, right? Like, you can't have Superman be. This is the issue with Tyler Hoechlin, right? The dude's like 5'9", and like, so it's hard, but you can't have him be any less than. Oh, he's 6 feet tall. Never mind. Yeah. But yeah,
no, he's really. his Superman is very charming, makes silly little jokes. He feels like Christopher Reeve's character.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I think we both agree Henry Cavill probably should be given another shot.
Oh, absolutely. Cavill should be given another shot. I don't know if he wants one, though.
Yeah, that's tough.
I think
that's
Cavill
tough.
is super happy playing Geralt. I think that's probably all he wants to commit to for the geek stuff. Yeah. I just don't think. Yeah.
The thing about Geralt, right? The Witcher stuff is that there's no acting in it. It's almost all like physical.
Right.
So I could kind of see that. All right, let's move on to our last topic here. We're going to go look at some MCU roles coming up to see if we can assign actors we know to them. Of course, we're going to struggle a little bit with some of the X-Men and whatnot because we just struggled getting young actors in mind. Andy, why don't you give me one of your strongest conviction ones?
Okay, my strongest conviction one is I think for Reed Richards, it should be Steven Yeun.
Yeah, there's a complexity behind that character, behind that actor, right? There's a complexity behind the character. We mentioned this off air, right? Where you said that he should be like handsome, but I think we both agree he shouldn't be like Captain America handsome.
No. He should be the kind of handsome where you don't have to try. You just kind of come off of it because Reed Richards doesn't care about how he looks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's just Steven Yeun is a very good looking man. I just think that he could really pull it off. I think he could pull off the aloofness that I want out of my Reed Richards.
Absent-mindedness.
Yeah. The only problem I have, though, is it depends on what they're going for. They're going for, the teenage Fantastic Four. Steven Yeun's out. But yeah. I think if they're not going for that, I think he can do it.
Yeah, he's a good choice depending on what they want to do. My casting that I have full conviction on, and I don't know if he wants to do it because of his previous experience with this same parent company, would be John Boyega cast as Scott Summers, aka Cyclops.
Can you imagine just him be like, no.
Yeah.
You know what? No. Yeah, I'm not doing that. No nerd stuff ever again.
Right. It's tough because of the Disney aspect of it. But I think it's important to take the X-Men back to what they were first inspired by. The civil rights movement and whatnot. And so I think the majority of the X-Men should be people of color. It should be people who have real life experience in being discriminated against. And that is not people who look like Ty Sheridan. That is not people who look like James Marsden. And I love James Marsden. He's great in so many things. Westworld,
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Enchanted, he's so great in that. But like, we don't need that right now. But John Boyega is, he's young enough. He's bold enough. He has experience working in that system. And now he'd be under the guidance of an executive producer who knows exactly what they're doing and knows what to do with that character, as opposed to what happened with Finn. Say what you want about the sequel trilogy. They did not care for that character. And they essentially used him as a bait and switch, which I would be frustrated, especially in the sequel, right? Where Rian Johnson is just like, yeah, I didn't know what to do with him. I wanted to keep him in a coma. So yeah, I think John Boyega would be an excellent, X-Man, right? To represent people who are discriminated against.
Right. And I really want anyone who thinks that he couldn't pull this off to go watch Attack the Block.
Yeah. Yeah. Cyclops has a little bit of both of those characters where he Andy, I don't know if you know who this is, but there's this basketball player from Duke called Christian Laettner.
Mm-hmm.
And, he like looks like he's a pretty boy. He's like this white basketball player who went to Duke and was like this really great college player. Like he looks like he, is a Boy Scout, but like if you like read into his like personal background, like, you know, he had a very troubled, like, or like, you know, grew up on this, you know, non-rich, non-privileged background despite being like looking like a Boy Scout. And that's what I think you have to like give Cyclops. And that's what the character's like. He has a little bit of an edge in the comic books.
Right. And he's just got this intensity about him, that I think Boyega could pull it off perfectly.
Yeah. Give me another one, Andy.
All right, Ariel. I think for Susan Storm, we should look at Samara Weaving.
Samara Weaving, she was recently in Ready or Not.
Yes.
Apparently she was very, very good in it. I hadn't seen it yet.
She is.
She is the niece of, do you know Andy?
Yeah, Hugo.
Hugo. Yeah, potential geek royalty, Hugo Weaving. Yeah, I think she's a good choice.
Here is the thing about her Ready or Not character. The arc that she plays is a very, you know, she's a smart, funny girl who, when stuff goes bad, keeps her head straight, goes through a real bit of trauma, but is still able to pull it off perfectly. I think Samara Weaving can really pull off Sue Storm, especially as someone who, you know, is with an aloof person romantically and then has these things happen to her.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She could really pull it off. She's also, I hate to say it, with she's young enough to pull it off. She's a gorgeous woman. She can do it. I think she's the best choice for it.
Yeah. This would, I think, have to be in a version where they decide to go young with the Fantastic Four. Stephen Yeun would be a version where they decide to go with adults. There's quite a bit of an age gap there, probably 10 years or more. A casting on my end that I would really like Fantastic Four.
It's only
tied.
8 years different.
How many years between Yeun and
8?
8 years? Okay. That still does not, she looks young and he can look old, and I wouldn't feel comfortable super with that.
Yeah.
Tied into the Fantastic Four, you get Namor, you actually have him played by somebody who looks like he grew up on an island. And you have him be Daniel Day Kim. I first saw Daniel Day Kim in Lost, and he's like he like comes out of the water, and you're just like, oh, that looks exactly like Namor. Like he's got sharp features, sharp eyes, that lean swimmer looking body. And I think he has the most important vibe, right? The most important thing you need to have when you have an actor cast as Namor is that he can look at somebody and you get the vibe of, how dare you talk to me? And I think that is the most important thing to have for Namor.
Right. And with Daniel Day Kim, as somebody, I've just watched a few Kurosawa movies. He gives me the,
Mifune?
Yeah, the Mifune vibes. The honored samurai who just has control over everything, right? Who's just always confident. And that's Daniel Day Kim today.
Yeah. And Namor is is like an immortal Atlantean, not immortal, but you know what I mean? Like a very, almost like Wolverine, where it's just like this person who looks this age all the time, and it doesn't matter how old he looks or whatever. He just has this timeless, very stern look to him that fits perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's great, and his Twitter is great. You should definitely follow him.
Right.
Not you.
Give me another one, Andy.
Listener. Yes, I think for Johnny Storm, you pick Zac Efron.
I think that's, real quick. I just saw a tweet about like almost this weird type of stunt / method acting where you cast an actor in a role that you need the audience to assume something about that character by what we know about the actor. And apparently the number one person to do this with is Michael Cera.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's exactly what we'd be doing with Zac Efron.
Yeah, and it works perfectly. I think Efron is actually a very, very nuanced actor who can do anything. Like I love Zac Efron. I think that what we know him as, from High School Musical, will be applied to Johnny Storm perfectly.
And I would love. He's a little older now, Zac Efron. So this would probably be in your version where Steven Yeun is playing. He's 32. So if Steven Yeun is playing, what's his name, Reed Richards, this would be that scenario. Like it would be great if Johnny Storm was literally like a former student athlete or like model or in a boy band. He's like that would be the perfect backstory for the modern day Johnny Storm, that he's in a boy band and then, they leave, they come back, he's powered and he looks like this and he has this edge and he doesn't how like Justin Bieber tried being a bad boy for a while.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work. But like if Zac Efron did it, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is jacked. Like he could actually beat me up. Like that'd be perfect.
Yeah. And plus, like Zac Efron has that sense of humor about himself.
Yes.
And his projects that I think Johnny Storm needs, right? Johnny Storm needs to be a goofball who gets these powers unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm. I have an option for Ben Grimm, but only in the sense of motion cap. What makes Ben Grimm so formidable in the Marvel comic books, right, is not only is he like big and unbelievably strong, right, but he is a former college football star. And so he has the sense of like agility and flexibility that the Hulk does not. And so back in the day, you would often have the Thing, Ben Grimm, fight the Hulk. And the fight would be so much closer than it should be, despite the Hulk's overwhelming advantage in power, because Ben Grimm is so athletic and agile and flexible, because those attributes transferred over when he went from a human being to a gigantic rock monster. And so I think it'd be really cool if you did mocap with the NFL player JJ Watt. JJ Watt is unfortunately made out of glass and gets injured every year, but in his heyday, he was the most devastating and dominant defensive player in NFL history for 3 straight seasons. He's 6'5". He weighs about 290 pounds. And if you just watch his tape, he just looks, no person that big should be able to move like that. And that's kind of what you want in Ben Grimm. It's weird, right? You expect a rock monster to move slowly, deliberately, like, I don't know, like a Colossus from that game. But in reality, he's so formidable in his fighting, as opposed to someone like the Hulk, where you smash.
Yeah.
Give me another one, Andy.
Okay. Well, for me, Ben Grimm, actually, I was thinking more going the pro wrestling game, right? You look at pro wrestlers because they have the acting and the theatricality. One that I looked at, and I'm not a gigantic wrestling fan, but I do know that CM Punk has a showmanship about him, and I would love for that also to be carried over to Ben Grimm, right? Yeah, you have him as the football star, and there's a bit of showboating and personality quirks about him. He's in many ways he is Johnny Storm, right? He's an older version of Johnny, right? He grew up with Reed instead.
Yeah.
That's just my go ahead. But if we want to skip on to X-Men, I've got a few.
Yeah, let's go to X-Men. I'll give another X-Men here. I think I think it's important to note Marvel's history of appropriating culture and centering white people in specifically Asian culture. And so I think you reclaim some of that by casting a Japanese actor for Wolverine. If this was done 20 years ago, I would have loved to see Hiroyuki Sanada play the Wolverine. If you Google him, he looks like Wolverine except Japanese. He played the Silver Samurai in that film, in the 2013 film The Wolverine. But he's usually just relegated to very like martial artsy Japanese samurai roles, and it's really frustrating. It would be really cool to see him be able to do that, to be the hero, right? To be the hero. I think a younger, late 30s, early 40s actor would be Brian T. He's Japanese. He is not given any chances, and we know it's not a meritocracy over in Hollywood. So somebody like Brian T., an older actor, Japanese American. I think Brian T. is half Japanese, half Korean. I would love to see that.
Okay. So for me, I think Jean Grey could be played by up and coming actor Storm Reed. Now, there's of course the layer here that Jean Grey would be played by Storm, but I'm such an idiot. But she was famous for her role in A Wrinkle in Time, but she was also in this year's much beloved movie I really love, The Invisible Man.
Okay.
I think she's young enough. She's incredibly smart. Or she can play the incredibly smart. She can play the. I think she'd be really good as Jean Grey. I think if you're going for all the X-Men are in high school kind of vibe, she would be very good as Jean Grey.
Yeah. Going over to Storm, I think even though it is obvious, Lupita Nyong'o is kind of that perfect, like, dark skin, African background, right? Like for Storm, we would need, I think for Storm, you would have to go like African background, dark skin. There's no other way around that character. But yeah, I don't know anything about Storm Reed, the actress.
Well, I mean, and she was born in 2003. Like, yeah. Just seeing her in Wrinkle in Time and seeing her in The Invisible Man was enough to make me go, okay, cool. She is also in Euphoria, the HBO miniseries.
Okay. Another young black actress I think would be Kylie Curran from Dr. Sleep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she was very good. Going back to the well of white boys, Andy, perhaps in the running for Superman, what about that up and coming To All the Boys actor Noah Centineo?
Yeah.
I wonder where or how you could fit him in. I'm not always for casting good looking white guys in these roles anymore, but he hasn't yet been in one of these. What else do you have, Andy?
Okay. For Professor Xavier. Now, Ariel, just hear me out on this. I think a very good person to play Professor X would actually be Alan Tudyk.
Okay, can you elaborate?
First of all, he can do a flawless British accent, so there's that. But I think that he has both the dramatic chops to be serious when it calls for a hit, but the ability to be very kind and empathetic, but basically a very good teacher.
Do you think that he is so entrenched as a funny person that would be difficult for audiences to see him otherwise?
I do not think so, and the reason why I don't think that is I think he is now entrenched as a voice actor.
Okay. I mean, I would disagree. I think maybe for the youngest of audiences, but for quote unquote millennials, He's the guy from Firefly. He's the guy from A Knight's Tale, right? He's Alan Tudyk. He's not, quote unquote, a voice actor. I just don't, nobody, but then again, nobody thought that like Adam Sandler could do it until he went and he did it. So perhaps, I'm wrestling with thinking of somebody for Xavier. One, you want him to be that kind of rich benefactor and teacher, but also movements are not spearheaded by white men. So for me, that's difficult to grapple with.
Yeah, right. Okay, I can, I can feel that. I can get the idea.
Right.
And part of the problem with Professor X is the reason why he is even spearheading this is because, yes, he's a white dude, but he's also a mutant. And that's the through line here.
Right. If you want to include the future plot lines of Xavier that we see in later Marvel comics, where you learn that he is not so benevolent and he is not so wholesome, then you cast the white guy. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think they would do it, but then you cast the white guy. I don't have a specific actor for this role, but if the MCU were to recast Daredevil, I would suggest not to get the old Irish Catholic. Instead, you get a Mexican-American actor. Because, in America and in Mexico, Mexicans have a very strong reputation and history of boxing champions. And you would be able to completely meld the aspect of the superstition behind the devil, the strict Catholicism that comes from his parents, and of course the boxing background that makes more sense today than any other quote unquote ethnicity, and just as much sense as an Irish boxer did back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, I do. I think that's a great idea, especially with. I mean, even maybe Puerto Rican, because I'm just thinking how I love West Side Story and how prevalent Puerto Rican immigrants are in New York City. At the time, I don't know how big of a Mexican American community is in New York City.
Sure, but I think it's more.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. The Catholic thing is perfect, I think.
Yeah, like Oscar De La Hoya and all that stuff, Julio Cesar Chavez, like these famous boxers is where I first got the idea. And obviously a lot of the Latinx countries have deep roots in the Catholicism, which is of course a colonial type thing. If you wanted to go really meta, you could make him also Filipino and just base it off of the one very famous Filipino boxer, Manny Pacquiao. Cause the Filipino Catholic roots are also very, very strong. There's also that sense of superstition, to make him a daredevil, which would be cool for me.
Right. I also think, you could actually get Julio Chavez to go in and play the father.
Sure.
Right? Like,
yeah, something like that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
It'd be so good.
Ariel, what are the differences between you and me that make you so much more aware of what people are up to?
It's because I grew up in Jersey City, and it's just so diverse there. That's what it is. It's the only difference.
Jersey City. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Give me one more, Andy, before we get out of here.
Man. One more. Well, Ariel, you brought up a proper response to this, so this makes me a little cautious to recommend it, but I think for Kitty Pryde, there is an actress who was in Deadly Class, which I enjoyed quite a bit, but the actress's name is Maria Gabriela de Faria, and for me, Kitty Pryde has a little bit of just a slight bit of a punk rock attitude to her, and I think that this actress could pull that off very well.
Who was it?
Maria Gabriela de Feria.
And she played the who did she play in the
In Deadly Class? She played Maria, the
okay, yeah,
right, yeah, the Hispanic assassin.
yeah. That's how you can. Deadly Glass is just a bunch of stereotypes. Not great.
Yeah,
Not great at all. All right. It seems that there are plenty of characters up and coming that we can look forward to. Plenty of roles, plenty of diversity. Go on, Andy.
Dude, sorry. You know, I don't know this actress's name, but another great role for Kitty Pryde would actually be the Beanie Feldstein's roommate from What We Do in the Shadows.
Wait. Oh, yes. I remember. Okay, so remind the audiences who Beanie Feldstein is.
Beanie Feldstein is the girl from Booksmart, but in What We Do in the Shadows, she plays Jenna, who is a fledgling vampire and LARPer. But
yes,
but her roommate might be a little too much Ellen Pagey, really. But that, and I thought of this because when I saw her, I was like, did they really get Ellen Page to? That was just my first reaction, but I think that would be a great role for her. And I don't even know this actress's name. I'm so sorry. Beanie Feldstein's roommate.
Yeah, so in terms of actors and actresses, I think that, you have the fresh off the boat kids who would, be great in this setting. We mentioned the actress from Dr. Sleep. You have a bunch of the actors and actresses from Stranger Things. And we just know that there's a plethora of roles upcoming in the MCU. I think, Andy, it is important to note that for the X-Men specifically, I think they need to do better and cast more people of color, and I'll tell you why. There are more people that are colored blue than there are actual people of color of the X-Men that you can think of off the top of your head.
Oof.
Off the top of my head, the X-Men, the normal X-Men, right? A roster that you can think of from the show, from the movies, whatever. Storm, Jubilee, that's it. There's no Latinx. There's no other Asian. There's no other African American or Black X-Men that you can just say off the top of your head. Mystique, Beast, Nightcrawler.
Dude. That's so depressing.
Yeah. So with that, I think let's head to homework. Andy, what do you have for homework?
Okay. There's this beautiful movie on Netflix called The Half of It. It is a movie directed by Alice Wu, who is an Asian American filmmaker. The Half of It is this beautiful coming of age story. If you like coming of age stories, and I'm a big sucker for it, it stars Leah Lewis as Ellie Chu in a small town it's almost an adaptation of Cyrano de Bergerac, where she is this really, really smart girl who is guiding someone else, a man, but played by something, but he's a very incredibly well-meaning football player in this small Wisconsin town, and he's just too stupid to talk, so he's paying her to help him woo this girl, and it's a coming of age story in the LBGT sense, as well as this girl is someone that Ellie Chu has feelings for. It's it's a great, funny movie that it just feels very authentic, and I think it feels authentic because the director is a Asian American lesbian woman as well. So it's called The Half of It. Please watch it. It's way more fun than it sounds, I promise.
All right, that is The Half of It. It is on Netflix.
Yes, it is a Netflix original.
Okay. My homework this week is an anime that is on Hulu, one that I have seen back in the Toonami days, but have not seen since. I like to describe it as Firefly plus the Jerry Seinfeld joke, do you like jazz? And, that is Cowboy Bebop. It is, of course, getting an adaptation, a live action adaptation that has been since delayed because of a John Cho injury and, of course, the coronavirus. But I've been catching up slowly on Cowboy Bebop.
Dude, I am so excited about the live action though. Like, John Cho could totally play Spike Spiegel. So good.
Yeah, it's every time I watch it, I'm like, this really is just like the jazz version of Firefly. If like Firefly was country, this is jazz.
Yeah. That's how I mean, the reason why I watched Firefly is I was told, you want a live action Cowboy Bebop? Here's Firefly.
Yeah, you're right. It's the other way around, right? Cowboy Bebop came first. Yeah, let me double check that. Let me fact check that. But yeah, that's our homework for this week. We'll have something whipped up for next week. But until then, Andy, where can people find you online?
You can find me online on Twitter and Letterboxd at Hebrews Pale Ale, but you can also listen to my new podcast, Monkey Off My Backlog.
All right. You can also find that where on Twitter, Andy?
Oh, you can find Monkey Off My Backlog on Twitter at Monkey Backlog.
All right. You can find me at Portly Island Boy. You can find us at Geek 101 Podcast on Twitter and Facebook and Patreon. Email us geek101pod@gmail.com. That's the way for today. Class dismissed.